and welcome to the Smartest Moron, where today we're not just looking at a Valkyria Chronicles game, we're not just looking at a PSP game, we're not just looking at a fan-translated game in general, we are looking at one of my favorite games of all time. Seriously, you'll be shocked at how many hours I actually put into this thing. It's insane!
There was a reason this review took so damn long, as I'll cover in the gameplay section later. For right now though, let's just dig into some backstory for this series. Valkyria Chronicles originally started on the PlayStation 3, with a remaster now on the PS4, along with a PC port that I played. It did fairly well with reviewers and even earned a sequel. On the PSP. Yeah, it should not be surprised that things started to go downhill. To be fair, Valkyria Chronicles 2 isn't horrible. Well, the gameplay isn't. The characters and story I played for a few hours felt really damn cliche and boring, relying on a lot of anime tropes that just irritated me. And then there's the laugh. God damn it, I hate Yvonne. Still, the game has problems, such as small limit to how many soldiers could be out on the field at once, which was irritating, especially if you play Valkyria Chronicles 3 first. And upgrading soldiers was a bit random, and relied on luck more than anything, which really pissed me off. The difficulty spikes though were pretty big too, like these armored assholes that pretty much helped make me rage quit this game. Despite there being a ton of similarities with Game 3, this sequel just wasn't fun for me to play. There are notable improvements that make this much better to play than Game 2, but we sadly never got this game in English. Odds were it was planned, as the official art book has conversations not only translated, but the font was different from what was used in the patch. We sadly did not get this game due to low sales on the second one, along with the PSP slowly dying, and it was up to hardcore fans to translate the game. Fortunately, they succeeded.
I technically found out about this patch years ago. It was around the same time as the Final Fantasy Type O translation, and well, both companies reacted a bit differently to, well, these patches. Square Enix reacted this way. After Square Enix has spent so long pimping out the Final Fantasy XIII series, we decided to translate Final Fantasy Type O for all of you to enjoy on the PSP. Actually, there's no need to fear, for we will be releasing Final Fantasy Type O on the PS4 and the Xbox One, eventually Steam as well. So we're going to have to issue a cease and desist and demand that you take down the patch. Otherwise, I'm afraid I will have to cut you up with this katana, and by the time I'm done, you're going to wish I used a Tonberry knife! We are at least still going to get Kingdom Hearts 3, right? I believe you're asking far too many questions. Meanwhile, Sega reacted this way. Wait, you're not gonna attack us or anything for releasing this patch? Seriously? I mean, I'm not complaining, mind you, but... seriously? Well, I'm sorry, we're too busy dealing with the mess of Sonic games lately. They've been hit and miss, and we just have no idea what else to do. Currently, I'm just bandaging my hands because, let me tell you, after so much stress, you just end up punching stuff, and I have no idea. I just need an idea that will save us. And like a bandage. That's it? That's it! Guys, I know how to save Sonic! I know how to save Sonic!
Okay, it's not the most accurate examples, but that's what kind of plays out in my twisted little head. And given the recent remastering of Valkyria Chronicles, I have a request to Sega.
Give us an official English release already! I bought the freaking art book of the game. I bought these two games. I didn't even need to buy them. I just had to buy this one because this is the one that was translated. But I bought both of them because I'm a freaking insane lover of this freaking game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So please, please Sega, give us an official English release date. Something, anything. I'll take a collector's edition or something. I'll buy the highest freaking one you have, my swear. John Harden. Look, I know you don't work for Sega anymore, or Atlas, or any of that shit, but surely you have some connections, right? Come on, I will do anything for this. I'll wash all their cars, I'll be the torture subject of all their crappy Sonic games, I will suck your dick! I would just like to take a moment to apologize for my overexcitement over there. I've been dealing with a lot of stress, and well, just the tiniest bit of happiness is going to send me into just make me crazier than I usually am. So I would just like to apologize to Sega, Atlas, and John Harden for that completely unprofessional outburst. I am truly, truly sorry. Psst, Hardin, call me.
Now as for the fan patch, I will not be saying where you can get it. If you actually hope I would, why the flying hell would I divulge information that could lead to me getting in trouble? Besides, if I can find it, you can find it. Trust me, I am not internet savvy. Also, if you want to support the game, buy the Extra Edition. This one comes with all the DLC, and it was the one the fan patch mostly translated. I'll get into that later as well. The director of the second game, Takashi Ozawa, returned for the third game. Since Game 3 was similar in terms of gameplay, it only took a year to develop this one. Rather than try this on a console, they stuck to their guns with the PSP, stating how they wanted to refine the good and bad elements of the series. In fact, they wanted to make this version easier on newcomers. They also got help from Media.Vision, who are actually working on the upcoming Valkyria Revolution game. I still haven't decided if I was going to review that because I'm still broke.
And with all that stuff out of the way, including embarrassing myself for a while there, let's dive into Valkyria Chronicles 3, Extra Edition.
警戒を厳にしてくれ。
If you played the second Valkyria Chronicles game, you probably know what to expect, for the most part. If not, well, not surprising. So what does this one do better? A few things, actually. Instead of there being a single battlefield like in the first game, there are multiple decently sized maps which the soldiers can move on. The objective varies in each battle, such as fighting giant tanks or boss units. But one of the most important things to do is capture the enemy bases, so they cannot continue to spawn more soldiers. Learning the battlefield is important, as enemies can hide around the corner or even in grass waiting to make an ambush, or even hide behind a sandbag to help reduce damage and eliminate any chance of pulling off a headshot, which is admittedly confusing even while out in the open.
Okay, this was supposed to be some kind of joke about, whole being invincible to headshots, despite, being without cover and yet still crouched, but honest to God, I'm only feeling pain, and I think my ass is sliding out of my jeans. Yeah, there it goes.
Fortunately, you can do the same on your turn as well to ambush incoming soldiers. This was one of the big problems of the first game. While each map there was unique, you had to know the entire battlefield in order to get the highest rank at the end of a mission. Here, the more I fight on these maps, the more I can understand what the enemy might throw and try to find shortcuts to deal with the threats. That said, I can understand people getting tired of seeing the same damn environment, and very rarely are unique maps put in place. Overall, it's an aspect that didn't bother me due to how varied the enemies could be. What did bother me at times though was seeing things untextured. Again, PSP. Plus each map has unique elements to take advantage of with your tank. By equipping a tank with certain parts, they can build ladders, bridges, or even destroy boulders for shortcuts. Or they can help take away certain weather or terrain effects, though only on certain parts of the map. It's all really damn useful too, as the various types of effects can easily hamper your party, and even possibly lead to their deaths. I'll talk more about the tank later, but these were essential in winning fights at times, or at least making the battles less painful. Of course, you still have limits when moving around the map. On the bottom of the screen, there's an orange bar representing your AP. When this is all gone, the character is too exhausted to move. You can still move the character with another command point, but it also decreases the amount of AP a unit has, to the point where it's pretty useless to keep using them. A character can only attack once as well, so if you miss, well, be prepared to think quickly, maybe end your turn so enemy interception fire doesn't affect you. Another thing to watch out for in a fight is the morale in the corner. This is important for a variety of reasons, and if it drops to 0, it's pretty much game over. Capturing bases and killing enemies certainly helps give it a boost, but you also have to make sure allies do not die or withdraw from the battle. You can save them by picking them back up with another character, giving some morale back in the process, and that same character can be used in the next turn too. Unless you are on easy mode, just hurling yourself at the enemy will make things so much worse for you. Besides, you really don't need to do that when the enemy does it for you. Seriously, the AI is freaking stupid sometimes.
I'm not kidding when I say the AI is probably composed of a bunch of Frieza soldiers.
Either die to him or die to me.
And as opposed to the 6 unit limit the second game had, you can now have up to 9 units on the battlefield at once, though only 5 at max on the same section of the map. This does wonders in aiding tactical ideas, as these troops can help cover more ground and defend these bases better. You also only get a certain number of command points per mission as well, though you can get more by making another character a captain later. It's kinda only limited to the main characters and the tank pilot, but can be applied to others so long as their class is upgraded. The difficulty really depends on the mode you choose. Easy mode is honestly really damn easy, as you will likely never die due to the weak interception fire and attacks thrown your way. Normal, on the other hand, you will die extremely quickly unless your defense is super high. The spikes in difficulty will also become much more apparent, like in Chapter 10, when the enemy will suddenly have sniper enemies that can hit 3 times, almost guaranteeing a kill on a character. There's overpowered, and then there's pants-wetting fear this game induced into me. And that was only a few chapters after the game introduces the heavy machine gun dudes, who I forgot could move and was immediately scared of. If you aren't prepared for these encounters, the game will punish you hard. That being said, the AI is still really damn stupid, as there were situations the AI could have easily won, yet chose not to for some bizarre reason. Especially in Chapter 10 due to those goddamn flamethrower tanks. The most important thing though are the orders, which also consume command points up at the top. Unlike potentials, these do not need to be randomly activated, and can help in turning the tide by buffing a unit up, or even finding soldiers hiding around the map. That last one is probably my most used order, especially when missions have time limits, and I am slowly panicking and wondering where the flying hell the enemy is. Thank God you can actually save up these things. There are quite a few classes to choose from, though there are some differences between this and Game 1 that I'll touch on in a bit. First you have Scouts, which have the most AP, but one of the weakest offensive stats. They are mainly used to, well, scout ahead, but their accuracy at times can be good enough to get in some headshots to deal with the opposition, and using a grenade to knock a foe out of cover, they can quickly cover some ground. Shock Troopers are your main offense of the team. While they start out with crap accuracy, they more than make up for it with their overall damage and defense. They lack as much AP as Scouts, but they are useful in clearing away other soldiers if you want to play it safe. And the ace weapons acquired later make them so much better to use when playing offensively and defensively. They can also use flamethrowers later on, which the enemy seems to really love to use. No, I barely used it myself. Lancers are the main units to take down tanks and other armored enemies. Their accuracy tends to be bad, and they cannot counterattack, but they are very necessary as the enemy loves to use armored enemies, such as turrets and bunkers, and of course tanks. Sadly, their ace weapons are not that effective. Their other weapon though can double as a long-range grenade, which does come in handy for soldiers hiding behind sandbags. Engineers are your healers for both the tank and other people, and are the only units that can do these tasks. They tend to have the weakest offense too, using only pistols. Still, they do pack somewhat of a punch, though, well, they don't really have much ammo. Not to mention they can restore the ammo of units like Lancers or Snipers, or even the tank itself. It's just compared to Scouts, they got inferior ace weapons, and their accuracy just wasn't all that great. They can also apparently buff units with the music, but honestly, I never bothered with that. I just found orders to be more effective. Snipers are a fun class too, capable of attacking from afar. It should be noted that enemies can still dodge these attacks though, so it's very important to gain the right positioning to pull off a nice headshot, especially from behind. They have the lowest AP though, so trying to get them to capture maps is a pretty dumb idea. But they are also very handy in taking down some of the toughest bosses. They can even take down tanks depending on the sniper rifle used. Sadly, certain classes felt a tad useless if not playing on easy. One of them is the Fencer. Now they do have a shield to block some damage, usually have higher health, and their attacks cannot be countered by an enemy. That sounds great, until you realize a few things. 1, that shield is small. 2, if you're playing on normal, that unit is likely going to be shredded by all the interception fire. And 3, enemies can still dodge these attacks, and since a Fencer cannot counterattack, they are likely to die on the next turn unless something is done. On easy, this is much more manageable. I hardly even use them due to these weaknesses. Whatever they could do, a scout with a grenade could accomplish far easier and quicker. Only when they had a tank vest equipped did I ever find a Fencer useful, as they could go through most interception fire, and depending on the weapon, even take down tanks. The gunner is less useless, and it really depends on how you use them. As support units, they do great as they carry twice the ammunition of a shock trooper. This also makes them good for defending bases as well. However, most of their guns have a really short range to them, and their basic attack involves trying to mow down targets like they are Rambo. Sadly, that's not useful in this game. As such, this made them one of the trickiest units to use without some good ace weapons. They really need some range to be effective, and during the last parts of the game, I found a shock trooper to be far more valuable. The tech units, though, are the ones I barely ever used. Their job is to mainly remove landmines or repair sandbags, and their weapons can help destroy enemy supply crates. Their shield is also large, and they even end their turn making a bigger shield that is really good against bullets. Less so for tanks. That sounds great, but since I play offensively, I didn't get too much mileage out of them.
You could have honestly given these abilities to the engineer, and nothing really would have been lost. It's kind of like crafting in Fallout New Vegas. Neat idea, but well, you're not really gonna use it that much. At least I didn't.
Finally, 3 of the main characters also have additional abilities that make them stand out from other soldiers. Kurt has the ability to command nearby troops to follow him as he traverses the map, and may even join in on attacks against the target, or just to get them through the map quicker, so it's a blessing for units with low AP. Rayla can transform into a Valkyria, which the game's opening spoiled by the way, so don't blame me for that. In this state, she becomes completely immune to any and all attacks, and can fire one powerful blast. However, the raw power is dependent on her weapon, and since she's likely going to be a scout, it once again comes down to headshots being better. And since enemies can also dodge this attack, well, I mainly just use this form as a way to get from point A to point B without her ending up a Swiss cheese. Or to watch enemies hilariously shoot her in vain, but they cannot do a damn thing except accidentally kill each other. That was easily my favorite part. Imka's special move is by far one of the most useful though, as she can use her weapon to shoot everything in her line of sight and blow it up to holy hell. Again, this is dependent on her weapon type, but considering fencers hit the hardest and even have swords capable of destroying tanks, she can take care of a whole mess of enemies. If I position her right anyway. And if enemies don't duck to reduce the damage like the cheap bastards that they are. Another important thing to note is that activating these abilities can help in restoring all of their AP for that one single turn before it drops back down super low. So it's another good way to traverse the map too. That being said, you only have a few chances to activate these abilities. Each map will give you a certain set of these points to use those abilities, but some maps may give you none at all. And unlike command points, these do not recover, so it's even more important to conserve them until the time is right to rain holy hell on the enemy. Upgrading soldiers is better than the first game, and you can even customize them to a certain extent. By killing soldiers, healing allies, taking bases, and other actions, your soldiers can evolve, becoming veterans, and finally, elites. Not only does this give them a stat buff, but they can learn potentials exclusive to their class. Some abilities can up the accuracy of units, lessen or increase damage, and much more. All these activate at random though, and can be a bit annoying. At the same time, it was never as frustrating as say the 3rd birthday when those abilities activated at random. So long as you know how to activate those certain abilities, and the more morale you have, you're pretty much good. It's unlocking them that becomes a pain in the ass. Hell, the only way I found out about all these abilities was through looking up translations online. Even then, it's also done at random sometimes. On top of this, when you change classes, you can add a 4th potential from another class. However, you can gain even better skills by mastering multiple classes, learning certain skills, and looking into the master table. To unlock these high-level classes and the potentials, it took me hours, meaning this potential 65-hour game just bumped up to over 100, at least depending if you actually want to grind. And yeah, I said 65 hours because it's gonna likely take you between 1 to 3 hours to finish each chapter. 20 in total. That's also not even counting the side quest stuff for other characters, which unlocks a 4th potential for them and gives more story. Beating stages grants you experience and cash, with a rank that reaches to S as well. You can level up stats rather than just focus on a single class. You can gain bonuses to health, accuracy, evasion, and one of the 4 skills that ups attack, defense, and status resistance. The first 3 can go as high as 50, but the latter 4 can only go to level 20. The annoying part of the latter one though, is that they cycle around. The only way to increase their levels way more without increasing the other ones is to save up more and more experience and level up that way. And I'll be honest, money is not much of a concern, for when I grinded, I always had enough on hand. In fact, I had way more than enough.
You know, if this actually worked for me in real life, I wouldn't have so many loan sharks after me. Or in this case, lone dolphins. Look, I will get you the money later!
The tank this time around comes in the APC mode, which actually can be used to help carry troops or is forced onto you during escort missions. It also has a really crappy machine gun. Or you can go for the good old tank, but there are variations in the sizes, each with their own benefits, like the lighter ones having more AP, or heavy ones just being more resistant and carrying more items. And unlike the previous 2 games, the tank can also move for only 1 command point as opposed to 2. Now that seems like a benefit, and it is, but not really for combat purposes. See, the tank's accuracy is pretty bad. As such, you're not likely to always hit your target, barring a certain weapon or unless you max out the stats while also getting some of the best tank weapons in the game. Rather, those items I mentioned earlier are very important, as they can negate things such as terrain effects like nighttime harming your vision, or certain tools can deal with obstacles like forming a bridge so you can get around much easier rather than plow through an entire wave of enemies and waste so many command points. Plus, the tank does help serve as a handy shield against incoming fire from enemies. In fact, that's how I beat one stage, just trapping a boss with the tank and allowing my unit to pass through unharmed. Really, until I got the upgrades, that was the best use for it. Boss type enemies are incredibly dangerous as well. Some like Valkyria here have an insane amount of range. Hell, I think she is shooting through a damn building in this stage. Some will even have different weapon types depending on their turns, and should never be taken on head on, unless you like to die horribly or constantly miss your shots, or in the case of Zig here, lure them out and shoot them back and forth with stuff. I'm dead serious, Zig is honestly the worst boss in the game. Fencer units like this are very easy to kill this way.
I swear to God, it's like they'll be distracted by anything that's shiny. Well, I assure you, I will never be distracted by something like this. Ooh, platinum chip. Shiny.
Still, you don't exactly have to beat every single boss. Sometimes the best strategy is to rush to the objective ASAP. And much like Kurt, a lot of them can pull off orders to help gain an advantage. In order to stop the orders, you have to kill them, though the enemy can do the same to you by taking out Kurt. And Kurt has to be on the field in order to support his troops with his own orders. This actually made me afraid to use Kurt in missions sometimes. Now, while the translated version does translate a ton of dialogue and such, don't get too excited. Not everything in this game is in English. The DLC missions, outside of the goals, did not receive the same benefit, so any side stories there will not be covered here. Thankfully, the art book I bought does actually tell me the event of those missions and what happened, though without too much detail. And they are playable enough that you can beat and get some good ace weapons or accessories. Unfortunately, because of the translation patch, at least one weapon is confirmed to be unobtainable as the ace just doesn't appear at all. I sadly replayed the mission a ton of times and even sought out information, but I got nothing. Now, if you're just playing the Japanese version, then this won't be a problem at all. Besides, it was a DLC weapon, so nothing was really lost. Well, okay, it was an upgraded machine gun of an already good weapon, and I am feeling extra goddamn salty. However, the balance of the ace weapons is also a bit skewed, as I felt I got too many fencer weapons that I couldn't really use much as I always had another one waiting that was simply better. The ace weapons also outclass most of the regular weapons too, with the only exception being maybe the lancer weapons, as those ace weapons usually focus on accuracy over raw power. When it comes to the story missions, they're the only ones that cannot be repeated, at least not until you beat the main game, so you must hunt down the ace in that specific mission, or risk never getting the ace weapon until, well, 100 hours later. And getting an S rank can help in getting bonus items like better accessories in certain missions. And once you are done the game, you can also do even more missions in the chapters to gain new ace weapons or complete different missions. Some of these missions are even exclusive to characters from other Valkyria Chronicles games, giving them some story and a chance to use them within the game. You can even use cheat codes to get new stuff, which includes Nagisa from Phantasy Star Portable 2 Infinity. And before you say I cheated by using her, Game 1 had 2 characters from Skies of Arcadia. I was just evening the playing field. Besides, she wasn't all that good of a unit. I don't know, I just felt Imka was a better fencer due to her, well, special attack. One interesting thing is being able to complete extra missions that can affect the story missions, as they can help stop things like enemy bombardments. It's definitely recommended to do these ASAP too. Overall, I can already tell there are a ton of improvements made to the gameplay over the second one that invested me much more into playing this game. It's honestly better that this is portable, as battles can sometimes take a very long time depending on your strength and the enemy. If you don't mind the repetition, you can genuinely enjoy the gameplay here, as I found it leagues better than the first game. That said, you also need a ton of free time, and the original had a better and faster pace to its story that didn't even reach half of the playtime that Valkyria Chronicles 3 expects you to reach. Even so, this game has quality and quantity with its gameplay.
But what about the story? Does that actually do well and even better than the other games? Well, we'll dive into that eventually, because this video's over and I gotta prepare the next video. So, I'll see you guys next time on The Smartest Moron.